Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the totally fascinating and, let's be real, sometimes absolutely brutal scientific realities of humanity becoming a multiplanetary species. We hear all the hype, we see the rockets launching, but what does it actually take to leave our home and set up camp on an entirely different world? Let's get right into it. So, have you booked your ticket to Mars yet? Sounds kind of crazy, right? But honestly, think about it. With visionaries like Elon Musk aggressively pushing to establish a human colony there as early as 2026, leaving Earth isn't just a fun sci-fi concept anymore. It's a highly funded, very tangible engineering goal. But that begs a pretty massive question. Why the sudden rush to pack up and leave? Well, this quote from the late brilliant Stephen Hawking really hits the nail on the head. Humanity's future on Earth just isn't totally guaranteed. When you look at the rapid depletion of natural resources, the changing climate, and, the historical precedent of a giant asteroid wiping out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, having a backup plan for humanity suddenly makes perfect logical sense. Okay, Section 1. Why choose Mars? I mean, with 8 planets in our solar system, why is Mars the holy grail? To answer that, we basically just have to play a quick game of planetary elimination. Mercury is an instant no. It's so close to the sun you'd fry at 432 degrees Celsius during the day and then freeze at minus 180 degrees at night. Venus, no way. It rains sulfuric acid and has 90 times the atmospheric pressure of Earth. And the outer giants like Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, they're mostly gas. You literally cannot land a spaceship on a cloud. So, by default, Mars basically wins the lottery here. Being a terrestrial planet with a solid surface, sitting at a relatively reasonable distance from the sun, it is quite literally our only realistic option for setting up a second home. Which brings us to Section 2, the harsh reality check. Because before you start packing your bags and dreaming of a cozy Martian life, you really need to understand that you can't just step outside and take a deep breath. Earth's atmosphere is this perfect, life-sustaining mix of mostly nitrogen and oxygen. Mars, it's a completely different story. The atmosphere is about 100 times thinner than ours, and it's made up of 96% toxic carbon dioxide. Trying to take a breath without a spacesuit isn't just hard, it's instantly lethal. And honestly, the Martian Welcome Committee doesn't get much friendlier from there. Because the pressure is so low, liquid water literally cannot exist on the surface. Add in an average bone-chilling temperature of minus 62 degrees Celsius, absolutely zero magnetic field to block deadly solar radiation, and these massive planet-wide dust storms that can last for months, well, you quickly realize you have to bring absolutely everything with you. Your air, your water, your shelter, the whole shebang. Moving right along to Section 3, a tour of Mars. Now, despite all those intense challenges, Mars is a stunning place with some truly mind-blowing features. Take gravity, for instance. Because Mars is so much smaller than Earth, its gravity is only 38% of what we're used to. That means if you weigh a solid 100 kilograms here, you'd weigh a bouncy 38 kilograms on Mars. You could literally jump 3 times as high. Sure, that low gravity might mess with your bone density over time, but man, the acrobatics would be off the charts. And speaking of extremes, check out Olympus Mons. This is the single largest volcano in our entire solar system. Standing an awe-inspiring 21.9 kilometers high, it's nearly 3 times taller than Mount Everest. It is an absolute beast of a mountain. Or, if you prefer going down instead of up, let's talk about Valles Marineris. This is a sprawling canyon network stretching 4,000 kilometers long and plunging 7 kilometers deep. Just to put that into perspective, our own Grand Canyon here on Earth is a tiny fraction of that size. Valles Marineris completely and utterly dwarfs it. You're also going to need a completely new calendar. A day on Mars, which they call a sol, is actually pretty close to an Earth day, at about 24 hours and 37 minutes. But because Mars is further out and has a wider orbit, a Martian year takes 683 Earth days. That means you'd be waiting nearly 2 full Earth years just to celebrate one birthday. And the views? Simply unreal. Thanks to all that iron oxide, which again is basically just rust covering the surface, the dust in the air scatters sunlight way differently than our atmosphere does. So instead of a blue sky, you get this dramatic reddish-orange sky during the day, which fades into a striking, brilliant blue sunset. It's literally an alien landscape. All right, section 4. How do we get there? So with all of these insane environmental hurdles, how are we supposed to establish a real presence there? Well, our obsession with Mars really isn't new. From Galileo first observing it through a telescope way back in 1610, to the space race of the 60s, to India pulling off a historic orbit on their very first try in 2013. We've been working on this for a while. And today, right now in the 2020s, NASA's Perseverance Rover is actually on the ground, actively testing how to generate breathable oxygen. The progress is just monumental. But here's the real kicker. The fuel problem. You just can't bring enough gas from Earth to get there and make it back. That is why companies like SpaceX are planning to use reusable starships and actually manufacture the return fuel right there on Mars. It's an ingenious plan. You extract water ice from under the dirt, suck carbon dioxide right out of the thin atmosphere, and combine them chemically to make liquid methane and oxygen. You are essentially building an interplanetary gas station. Which brings us to section 5, the final debates. Now, a question that almost always pops up in this space is, if we want a colony, why not just settle on the moon? I mean, it's right next door, just 3 days away. But when scientists actually compare the two, they look past the moon. Yes, it's closer, but it has absolutely zero atmosphere, meaning it gets hammered with 300-degree temperature swings every single day. Mars, on the other hand, at least has some atmosphere, much better gravity, changing seasons, and dynamic geology with actual resources we can use. Long-term, it's a vastly superior option to a barren rock like the moon. And finally, section 6, saving our home planet. Because while colonizing Mars is this absolutely incredible necessary leap for human engineering, it's also a pretty massive wake-up call about what we already have. We're spending billions of dollars and decades of human genius just figuring out how to squeeze a single drop of water and one breath of air out of a freezing, dead desert. So before we look too far into the stars, we really have to ask ourselves, as we desperately plot to survive on a barren rock millions of miles away, are we forgetting to fiercely protect the one and only home in the universe that effortlessly gives us life?